Okay, so The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, or The Conjuring 3, just to keep it simple, is the third entry in the Conjuring franchise, not the Conjuring universe, because obviously there's a ton more movies in the universe. And it's about Ed and Lorraine Warren, who return to investigate the case involving the infamous Devil Made Me Do It case, where it was the first mainstream case where the defense was demonic possession after someone killed him, after someone was killed. And we have a third Conjuring movie that is not in a haunted house, after all. So, I was definitely looking forward to a new Conjuring movie. I'm a big fan of the Conjuring movies, the two at least. As far as the spin-offs go, they're mostly missed, but I do like Annabelle Creation a bit. And, the other ones didn't really do it for me. The Nun was terrible. Annabelle Comes Home, I think, was the last one that was mixed. Curse of La Llorona was mixed, so I was definitely looking forward to a new Conjuring movie. I was definitely looking forward to Ed and Lorraine Warren returning. But James Wan didn't return to direct this one. Instead, it was directed by Michael Chavez. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He previously directed the Curse of La Llorona, which is a Conjuring universe movie, after all. Even though they just mentioned it once and they're like, alright. They're like, okay, we're in the Conjuring universe. This happened at one point in my life. Bye, good luck. Okay, it literally did not need to be a Conjuring movie, and yet it was. So I was definitely looking forward to this movie. Mainly because I just love the first two so much. I'm definitely curious how they would proceed without James Wan as the director. And after watching this movie, I can say James Wan was sorely missed behind the director's chair. He was a producer on this movie, but he was also a producer on all the spin-off movies, so yeah, that's all I'll say. So is there anything that does work here? A few things actually do work. Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are good. They're always good as these characters. I think they are really well done. They act their characters really well. You do believe them and their relationship. The movie focuses on their relationship quite a bit in this movie. And I do like that aspect of this movie. I thought their relationship was very nice. It was well handled. It didn't overshadow the movie too much. I think they did it just right. As far as the acting, I thought Patrick Wilson did a better job than he has in any of these movies. Vera Farmiga, not so much, only because, I thought she was great in The Conjuring 2. Here, not as much. She's still good. I still really like her performance in this movie. But it was just a bit of a step down from Conjuring 2, unfortunately. Also, I did like a lot of the build-ups to a lot of the scares in this movie, where they were definitely very creepy. It's just, maybe some of the payoffs didn't really work out. There's this one where the guy who was he killed someone and he uses demonic possession as his defense. There's this one where he's hanging by a tree and he sees someone. That's really creepy, but nothing really comes out of that afterwards. It's just, it's there, it happens, and yeah. Also, I kind of like the new angle they took with this new movie, because the last two were in haunted houses. This one is more just someone being possessed, a family being possessed, and it's definitely more of a mystery than it is a haunted house movie. And so you do get to see a lot of the Warrens investigating, which I do like that they showed it more in this one. You do see a lot of Lorraine Warren's tactics of how she goes into these paranormal investigations. I really did like those scenes. Also, this movie was surprisingly funny for a movie like this. This may be the funniest movie in the Conjuring universe, surprisingly. There's a scene where they're talking to a lawyer about how they can use demonic possession as a defense. And she goes, well, that's ridiculous. And Ed Warren goes, come to our basement. It's she's fine, I will. And the next scene is yeah, we're going to use demonic possession as our defense. And I just kind of laughed because, she probably didn't need to see too much. It's yeah, that's enough. We're good. Also, another scene where they're talking to a police investigator. And a song by Elvis comes on and he goes to Lorraine Warren. So, did you ever meet Elvis? No, that's not how it goes. She goes, I actually met Elvis. And and the investigator goes, alive or dead? And she goes, alive. That was kind of funny, too. It's a movie that's kind of darkly funny. Not as darkly funny as you would think, but enough to go, hey, that was kind of funny. Now let's get to what I really didn't like, and this was kind of the disappointing one. This movie is just not as scary as the other two. Like, the first two Conjuring movies, I can look back and go, okay, that's really scary. Even after, like, how I know they do those things, like, how they actually attempted to do those things, that is still frightening to me. This one, I'm just like, no. Nothing in this movie is really that frightening to me. Except for, like, the opening exorcism scene. That scene was pretty scary. Other than that, nothing works. It's a bad sign when your scariest scene in a horror movie is the opening scene, and it all just goes downhill. That's unfortunate. And, like, oh, there's supposed to be a really scary scene at one point. I forgot what happened exactly, but they're being chased by this monster, and all of a sudden it's like they turn on the lights or something, and all of a sudden the monster just knocks his head and just falls over. I'm like, how? Like, why? It was just sad. It was just a sad attempt at being scary. It went from being scary to being silly, and I just didn't care for that. Also, the main plot, like, once we start figuring out what happens, is like, it just becomes way too convoluted. It's like, I kind of got lost. It's like, wait, what? How? Why? At least all the other Conjuring movies, even like the spin-off movies, they're very simple to follow, and this one got way too convoluted. It got way too ridiculous, and I'm like, I just couldn't follow it anymore, like, by the end of it, unfortunately. Also, there's a lot of moments that were shown in the trailer that are not shown in this movie. Like, there's this one where it's like, okay, they're in this, like, scene where it's like, oh, they're repeating the same thing over and over again. Like, it's kind of like what they did with Rey in The Last Jedi when she's, like, in that cave or whatever. But, like, they removed that from the movie. It just didn't really make sense, like, why it was removed. Also, I didn't really care for any of the new characters, unfortunately. Like, at least in both the Conjuring movies, I could at least care about the families that were being haunted. This movie doesn't really focus too much on the main guy who was possessed. You do know that he has a girlfriend. You do know that he cares for her little brother. And that's about it. Nothing else. Because, like, while the movie does focus a lot on Ed and Lorraine Warren, the movie doesn't really focus on who's being affected by this directly. And that was kind of missing from this movie, unfortunately. So, overall, the main thing that I'm trying to say is that this movie was kind of missing James Wan's touch. Like, he really should have been the director of this movie instead of Michael Chavez. Well, I did kind of like this more than La Llorona, his last movie. I still don't really recommend it too much. So, Conjuring 3, the performances are fine, the build-up is good, the atmosphere is good, soundtrack and cinematography are good, like usual. It does take on a lot of different angles that you wouldn't expect from this movie, but I kind of wish that they kept some things that worked in this franchise, instead of just, kind of trying to reinvent it completely. Kind of wish there was more emotion, there was more of a human element to these movies that was just kind of missing from this entry. So I'll give The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It 2.5 out of 4 stars. Stream it. So, The Conjuring 3, what did you think of it? Also, what's your favorite Conjuring universe movie? Comment down below, subscribe to the channel. This is Pat, and stay safe.